Hi, my name is Abigail Ormond, and in this video, I'm going to be exploring the media's representation of American Buddhism in terms of commercialization and appropriation. In order to accurately critique the media's representation of Buddhism in America, we need to define exactly what appropriation is. The action of taking something for one's own use, typically without the owner's permission. This is fairly broad, so we may need to get more specific. If we narrow it down to cultural appropriation, we find reference to a dominant culture adopting elements of minority culture, specifically with power imbalance involved. Often the original cultural significance of these traditions are cast aside or distorted, which is why this is problematic. It doesn't take a lot to notice that many Americans love the image of the Buddha. He can be found in stores all over the country in the form of mugs, posters, psychedelic t-shirts, and even salt and pepper shakers, and cookie jars, and even more t-shirts. From the site Everyday Feminism, we can see that many take offense to these commercialized products that make a product from Buddhist imagery, often without respecting the history of the religion. There are even petitions for companies to stop using the Buddha as a quasi-mascot for their products. This one only has 9 signers. It seems most people don't care enough about this particular food product to fight against it. Though the use of the image of the Buddha in itself is not offensive to most Buddhists, commercialization is contradictory to the basic Buddhist concept of detachment. Few would find a problem with Buddhism's spread west in itself, but some start to take issue with in what forms exactly it's being spread. Despite the many deep complexities of Buddhism, there is a tendency for people to think they have an understanding of their religion from a single meme or a Dalai Lama coffee table book. Huffington Post author Aaron Pomerantz addressed the American view of Buddhism in his article. Many people in the West, or those who are not acquainted with Buddhism as a religion, see the image of the Buddha and associate it with a relaxed culture, a representation of the free-spirited and of the spiritual. The problem with this mindset is the separation between the religion and its imagery and some of its practices, like meditation. Pomerantz touched on this, mentioning how meditation has been removed from the religious context associated with Buddhism. It's once the disconnect between the practice and the religion forms that it crosses the line into appropriation. In an ABC article on appreciation versus appropriation, author Jarni Blakarli suggests that there is a concerted effort to ignore the teachings that meditation was meant to accompany. People are removing the religious context and replacing it with science and pop culture. Monks aren't necessary, as scientists and scholars testify to the benefits of meditating. Practices like Vipassana and Anapanasati meditation are renamed and westernized to mindfulness and breathing meditation. None of this is to say the media is against Americans practicing Buddhism. Blakarli even acknowledges that meditation doesn't have to be limited to Buddhism, as it can be beneficial and relevant to everyone's lives. However, this becomes a problem when practitioners refuse to acknowledge the rich history, culture, and religion behind these practices. Taking another culture and shaping it to your own without respecting its history is appropriation, and that's a problem, according to most. But is it really such a bad thing? There is another side to the media that disagrees with the notion that Americans' appreciation for Buddhist practices and messages is an issue. Blogger Brad Warner argues against the idea of appropriation itself, saying, "It's a clever way of justifying racism in the guise of being anti-racist. It says that cultures and races should never mix, that white people should only like white people stuff, that black people should only like black people stuff, etc." I don't believe that cultural appropriation exists, but even if I did, you can't really accuse someone of appropriating a cultural product that someone of that culture has actively encouraged them to take up. Warner is referencing how the nature of Buddhism is to teach and spread the word of the Buddha. Though Warner's view on appropriation may be more extreme than most, he definitely isn't the only one to disagree with the opinion that American Buddhism is wrongful appropriation. An article on the website American Buddhist Perspectives explores how Western appropriation of Buddhism and mindfulness may be a good thing. Author Dr. Justin Whitaker writes, "We have seen people use these practices and ideas in order to generate patience, strength, community, and fortitude in the midst of fighting oppression." There is no doubt that Buddhism has taken root in American culture and blossomed on its own. Mindfulness and meditation are an increasingly large part of American culture and traditions. Maybe we have appropriated Buddhist traditions into our own culture, but isn't that simply how all cultures develop over time? When it comes to appropriation, intention is key, along with contextual understanding or wisdom. As such, it becomes incredibly difficult to paint any activity in broad strokes as either morally wholesome or unwholesome.